Hi, everybody, and welcome to Proline. This is one of two Prolines that you get this week. The NFL version, we'll be talking playoffs on this one with John Creighton and Jim Feist. I'm Dave Cokin. And, of course, make sure and check out the other Proline that will be pertaining mostly to college basketball back in the conference play. So you definitely want to check that out and get some insight onto some of the big matchups coming up this weekend. But first, we've got loads of stuff to talk about as far as the playoffs are concerned and looking ahead to the conference championship games this weekend. And, well, let's start it off with a little bit of an update from Jim. It's been such a good year for you in the NFL, and hoops and NFL winners are on tap right now.
You know, I absolutely, Dave. Thanks and good morning. With 3 games left to go, I have to say I'm really sad to see the end of the NFL season because it's been a monster for me. And Saturday in hoops, I was 9-3, 7-1 in the NFL playoffs. That included the playoff game of the year. That was a winner. 6-0 in the NFL totals. Right now, I've got 2 sides and 2 totals this weekend in NFL games for $20. And make sure you ask about my Monster Basketball package. That's January game of the month. That's $100 online. The Saturday Conference Game of the Year, $100 online. And a High Roller Platinum release, $500 online. All 3 plays, $700 value for $29. Make the call right now. Get the college hoops for 1-866-841-1655. And don't forget, the NFL package is $20. So that's all 4 sides and totals in the NFL. And 3 big plays in college basketball for $29, 1-866-841-1655. Back to you, Dave.
Well, I'm still a little steamed over the Broncos on Sunday. I thought Denver was a good play, and they were. Only it didn't end up that way. And it didn't. You stop and think about it for a second. There were so many things that had to go in the same direction for Denver not to cover that game. The odds on it on all those, and the combination of things happening was staggering. You had 2 drop touchdown passes, one of which turns into a pick. You have a punt return that's going to go for 6, and the guy trips over air. A field goal kicker who hasn't missed all year. He's missed 1 kick all year. I think he might have missed 2, but he certainly missed 1. The onside kick recovery. It was just, and a 4th down and I think 4th and 5, they had a 49-yard pass play, which set up a touchdown. Speaking of the Chargers, so that's a lot of stuff that had to go wrong, and I lost the game by a point because I had Denver -8. I did like the under in the other game, which won. I liked the Patriots a lot on Saturday, so that won. So it's not like it was a bad weekend in the NFL, but it should have been a great weekend and just didn't end up being one. That's the way it goes sometimes. As long as I'm picking what I think are right sides and what play out as right sides, not always going to get the right result. But the idea is to be on the right side, and the rest will take care of itself. Now, here's something where you're going to get on the right side for the last 2 weeks of January. It's as easy as this. This is a very simple offer. You try and get it to involve stuff once in a while with big games. This is as simple as it gets. $15 for the rest of the month. It's $1 a day. And you're going to get action plays in football. You're going to get the basketball. Hockey, if I got action plays in the NHL, you get those as well. I'm also going to toss in a real big play that I've got tonight. Very strong play. That's included $15 for everything at 1-866-896-1629. That's 1-866-896-1629. That is a very small price to pay for a lot of profits. We're into a good time of year in college basketball, so take advantage of this. John, how about Mr. Vegas? What's he got going on this weekend?
Sure, the Proline offer last week was 3 Saturday games of the year releases. Went 2-1 with those releases, including an NFL playoff game of the year. That was the Saints. Same thing this weekend. 3 big plays going on Saturday, including the NFL playoff total of the year. 2 college games of the month. 3 big plays. You get all 3 from Mr. Vegas for $10. 1-866-896-1627.
We go through the Twitter feed and Facebook and look for good questions. So if you want to comment or question on something, the best thing to do is follow us on Twitter at JimFeistSports or friend us on Facebook at ProlineTV. And we might pick one of your questions if it's one that we think is pretty interesting. Here's one from Joyce Callahan of Encino, California. Kind of answers it herself in a sense, but we'll expand on it a little bit. NFL playoffs are 6-2 to the under. Is that better defense, bad weather, or bad numbers? Jim, I think it's a little of all three, and the fact that it's the playoffs.
Well, yeah, Dave. I mean, first of all, better defense is you're dealing with the best teams in football right now. You're not dealing with the Jacksonvilles and the Oaklands and teams like that. So you are dealing with better defenses. So that's part of it. Bad weather, we have had some bad weather. I don't think we're having bad weather this coming weekend, however. And bad numbers, I don't think so. I don't think it's bad numbers because I think the odds makers know what they're doing. The public expects high-scoring games because it's been a passing league all year. But what they missed is when you get to these good teams, the better teams in the league, the only way you're going to penetrate those defenses with a balanced attack. You're not going to just sit back there and throw the ball like you can against some of the crap defenses. So they're running the ball a lot. And I mean, almost 250 yards last week by the Patriots over Indianapolis. You're seeing the running teams doing very well. And as a matter of fact, I think the highest passing quarterbacks last week, all four of them lost the game. So that kind of tells you that the league is different when they're playing. You know, there's like 32 teams, but like 22 of them are absolutely terrible. So you can pass against them. They don't have enough defensive corners, and they're not getting the pass rush. So when you get down to this part of it, you got the better defense, like you said, Joyce. You got the bad weather, which we definitely had. But I don't think the numbers are bad. I think the numbers are what the public expected, and only the sharps have been taking the unders and winning.
I'll add one more. I'm gonna argue that just on one game. I thought they missed the boat right off the bat in the Saints Seahawks game. That weather forecast was out there on the 7th day when they put the number up, and they got hammered on the under in that game. That number was just too high, and they paid for it. You know, that's the one thing the books have to be aware of it, and they are aware of it, and that's why they're putting up sharp numbers for the most part. If they make a mistake in the number now, they get hammered right away. There are some very sharp syndicates out there who take advantage of this, and I thought this was an example. They really got they got a lot of money on the under in this game. I'm not crying for the books. Believe me, they did fine this weekend. It wasn't a phenomenal weekend for them by any means, but they're never going to do badly, and they're sharp enough so that the lights are going to stay on in the casinos throughout the year. But I
want to add something to that, Dave. You're right about that. That was a mistake and poorly managed. But, you know, they go by a lot of it goes by money. Here's the problem. When the media, when the broadcast crews came on and they showed the bad weather up in Seattle, it was absolutely horrendous. Coming down in buckets and the wind was blowing like crazy. But then a couple minutes later, that all stopped and the sun came out. Well, I'm watching the screen and I'm already on the under in the game. And I'm watching the screen and the game went from 8, 9, 9.5, 10, and the total just kept going up and up, and I'm saying, what are you, crazy? I mean, I've been in Seattle, I've owned property in Seattle up in the Northwest, and I know every 15 minutes the weather changes, so that stuff that's out there is not going away. Yeah, you got a spot of sun, and the people are betting the game like there's sunshine the whole day, and that wasn't going to happen. So I went back in and I loaded up, I kept taking bigger numbers, and going under bigger numbers, and it was like a field day. It was like a bear sitting in a salmon stream.
Nice.
I just picking it off.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, it was easy. It was real easy, except for, boy, I mean, I got to tell you something. I'm sitting there in my den watching the game. It's 23-15 late.
Yeah.
They got that onside kick, and it's like, Jesus, they got a shot for a touchdown and a 2. I mean, it's a long shot because there's no time left, but they still got a shot. This game goes to overtime, and the under loses. I'm going to be really unhappy. I mean, real unhappy. But fortunately, Marquise Colston did something. I have no idea what that was that Marquise Colston did, and that was the end of that. John, how about you? Any thoughts to add?
Yeah, I'd add one thing to what she pointed out, which I agree with all of it, and that is coaching philosophy on a game-by-game basis. That can rear its head. For example, the Patriots and the Chargers have great passing numbers for the entire season, both top 10, and yet what we've seen over the last month, particularly in the playoffs, is they decided to change strategy in the playoffs and go to the run more. Now, obviously, they wanted to control the ball and the clock. San Diego did it against Denver when they beat them last month, a game that went under the total 27-20. And again, on this past weekend, it was all about rushing. In fact, they have one passing yard in the first half. That game sailed under. The Patriots, too, have gone more toward a run-oriented game. Now, that game against the Colts did fly over the total, but there are certain situations you can look at when a coach says, we need to run the football, we want to control the ball and the clock. That clock can go faster and keep games scoring. A low score.
All right, now let's get into some football. We're also going to look at one of the better basketball games on Saturday as well. But don't forget there's a basketball edition of Proline, so make sure and check that out. The Broncos playing host to the Patriots. It's played out according to the script, and I'm not suggesting it's scripted, but you've got the two best teams in the AFC are matching up. It's another epic meeting between Brady and Manning. The first one was a classic as the Broncos roll out to what looks like it's going to be just a complete blowout in Foxborough. And the Patriots come back with one of the more spectacular rallies I've ever seen, really, and end up winning the football game. So, John, what happens in the rematch?
Well, this is fascinating from sort of a chess point of view. Is what are the strategies we're going to see? I have no doubt what Denver's going to do on offense. Peyton Manning runs the offense. He's the offensive coordinator. Rarely he's going to go no huddle and throw every down. The question though is what is Bill Belichick going to do? This is the fascinating part of it. And historically, he has played Peyton Manning with deep safeties, nickel. All about playing pass defense. Sometimes he rushes 3 guys. I've seen him even rush just 2 guys and have 8 and 9 back in the secondary. So when you look at the earlier meeting that was a 34-31 overtime game, Denver had 48 rushes in the game for 280 yards. That's because Belichick was playing those deep safeties, saying, go ahead, Peyton, I dare you to run. In fact, through 3.5 quarters, Manning had only 73 passing yards, which is just astounding. So I suspect Belichick is going to play the deep zone defense, not going to blitz very much. He's going to ask the secondaries and the safeties, do not get beat deep. And the thing, though, for the Pats that I see is quite a few weaknesses. First of all, they haven't been a good road team. They're 4-4 straight up, 2-6 against the spread. And I kind of believe that Jack Del Rio, the defensive coordinator of Denver, his game plan might be, I want Tom Brady to beat me, which we've never seen, because their wide receiving core isn't really very good. They don't have Gronk. They could use a guy like Aaron Dobson. I know he's a rookie, but he's big and fast. Probably not going to have him with that foot injury. So really, they got 2 slot guys. And what we saw Del Rio do against the Chargers was stack the line on first and second down, blitz a lot, try and take away the run. I got to believe, Jim, he's going to kind of do that. It may keep this game a little bit scoring.
Your analysis, John, was excellent. It is a chess match. I mean, Brady against Manning it's classic. It goes back, 15 years or so they've been doing this. First, number 1 in passing, 340 yards a game, that's Manning. Brady, a little bit more balanced. They're 10th in passing and 9th in rushing, where Broncos are 15th in rushing. But, both teams can run the ball. Both teams can throw the ball. Obviously, Manning has more offensive weapons since basically the Patriots lost so many to either jail or injuries. This is a classic chess match, and I think I know what to expect. I think what your analysis was absolutely correct. They're not gonna let Manning sit back there and kill him deep with all the weapons that he has. So they have to play very defensive. But part of playing defense is what San Diego did against Manning a few weeks ago, not this past week, but a few weeks ago, when they were able to keep Manning on the sidelines. And that, I feel, has to be the case here for the Patriots. I don't think the Patriots can go into Denver and just go into a high scoring. They don't have the weapons that they can do that on the road. And they have not been as successful on the road this year. Although they played very well at Carolina, which was probably the best team they played on the road this year. And that was the controversy at the end, where the guy threw the flag and then picked it up with no explanation. So, you have some great coaching here. Belichick is a master, and they have gone head-to-head with Manning teams before and done pretty well. So you got Brady Belichick, and I don't know what number this is, but it's maybe Brady Belichick number 1001, and it's going to be a classic matchup. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm not really going to give away anything on this game in terms of what I'm going to do, because that's what clients are paying for. It's not really fair to them. And I will be involved in this game. But one thing I will say is this. As there's more and more information out there on the Internet, you can follow what's happening with a good line screen, and also on Twitter and things like that. More and more people are getting caught up in trying to figure out where the sharp money is as opposed to the square money. There's not that much of a difference in terms of wins and losses between sharps and squares. Okay, it's interesting only from the standpoint of which side wins, if there is a battleground on these games. And I can tell you right now, by the way, the squares, the dummies, the so-called dummies, and I put that in quotes because I hate air quotes, but I'm going to use them here because they're not dummies. It's just a different opinion. They're doing better than the sharps. Okay, take that for what it's worth. They just are, and it's been fairly consistent down the stretch. So the only piece of advice I can give you is if you are going to make a play on this game based on your perception of who's betting what, it's just really not a very good way to handicap. You got to learn to break the games down. If you're gonna handicap on your own and not use somebody else's selections like ours, you got to learn to break the games down by yourself and come up with your own opinion and bet that opinion and not get swayed off it by this so-called sharps versus squares thing that's taking place. I think it's another great thing for the odds for the bookmakers. It's increasing their action. As people get involved in this, they want to bet more money because they want to follow the sharps. And all it does is pad the bookmakers' bottom line. And the books are sitting back there and smiling every second of it. Not to say that there's not some true sharp money out there, but I think what we're seeing is a lot of misinformation. Jim, I know you can address this too. I think it's a lot of misinformation that it's not necessarily a true sharp side versus a true square side. I think a lot of that's phony. People just getting caught up in this on Twitter and on various forums and thinking they know where the sharp money is, and they really don't.
Well, Dave, you brought there's so many ways to, what is a sharp player? I mean, there's a lot of old timers out there that they were sharps when there was no information out there, when people were just going by the seat of their pants. And they were the sharps because they did a little bit more work, and the squares were doing mostly seat of the pants betting. Today it's so much different with the internet. There's so much stuff, analytics and all that stuff out there that people, let's take a look at this game, and I'll give you a little bit of a way to look at this. You go back to John Cranton's analysis of the game and how it was going to be played out. If the Patriots run the ball and control the ball, they have smaller receivers now, and there are a lot of underneath. They got LeGarrette Blount. They got a running game. If they control the ball like that, it's a different situation. Now Denver has got to try to figure out how to stop that without letting too much stuff get down the field where one of these guys can break loose for a big pass. That's a very difficult. This is where a balanced offense creates problems for defensive people. Now, the Broncos don't have the greatest defense in the world. Neither one of these teams have the greatest defense in the world. Those great defenses are up in Seattle this weekend playing. Now, if they do that, and the Patriots ran the ball, or not, the Broncos ran the ball last week against San Diego, but San Diego is a different team too, and they kind of self-destructed. They had a lot of injuries, made some mistakes. But be that as it may, if this is a running game, if the Broncos try to run the ball, and the Patriots try to run the ball, and they back off the Brady Manning thing and become balanced offenses, I want you to look at something. The line opened 54.5 and it's 55.5.
Right.
What happens when you throw the ball and they're completed and you go out of bounds, the clock stops. When they're not completed, the ball hits the ground and the clock stops. Now, but when you run the ball and you stay in bounds, the clock runs. And they do only play a certain amount of minutes unless it goes overtime. So when you start thinking about, if you can, this is what I do 24 hours a day. So believe me, I sleep this stuff. I try to figure out, just like a horse race, where's the pace, who's taking the lead, who's coming off the pace. This kind of thing, the same thing. So when you analyze and you know, you think you know, you don't really 100% know because coaches can change their attitudes. But if you think you know how the game is going to be played in styles, then the total becomes rather easy to win, because you can tell if the odds maker is just going by numbers, and they're not going by how the pace was. They're looking at these two teams as being over teams. That's why you're looking at 55.5. They change it up and they run the ball 40 times and throw it 15 or 18 or 20. You're going to see a much lower score unless every time they throw it, they score every time. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, I'm just saying, if they come out passing the 55.5, they're going to fly over the total because the weather's good. This is where you have to do some damn work. And forget, like Dave said, the sharps and the squares and all that. The squares are not as square as they used to be.
That's right.
Ask any bookmaker what their hold percentage is now versus 5 years ago. They used to look at 7, 8, 9% hold percentage in the NFL. Now they're looking at 3.5 and 4. Why? Because the squares are sharper than they used to be.
All right, free plays. We have free plays available in a variety of ways, but really the simplest way to get these is via text message. And you can get a daily free play from both Jim and myself. Actually, I'm out of order here, but I'll go ahead and finish it up anyway. I'm not following the script that our erstwhile producer, John Cranton, has put together. But the hell with it, we'll improvise. Quick mention of my free plays. Now, this is for 2012 and 2013, and these are all archived, so anybody can find them. If you'd have just played a flat $10 on every free play I gave out, you'd be up about $700 on a $10 bet. Obviously, if you're playing a dime on those games, you'd have $70,000, but I'll be honest with you, if you're playing a dime on the games and you're not calling my office, that's kind of silly, because it's not the latest information available. The games go out pretty early, and sometimes late information will change that. So, anyway, the free plays have been a real big profit producer, and off to a little bit of a slow start in 2014, but we're not going to win them all. And stay with them. They're going to produce like they always do in the long run. My free play every day, yours via text message, by texting Cokin, C-O-K-I-N, to 313131. And Jim, yours are just as easy to get. Just shows up on the cell phone every day.
That's right, Dave. You just text WINNER, WINNER, to 313131, and I'll send you a free play right to your cell phone. WINNER, WINNER, to 313131.
All right, let's go to a basketball game. Iowa State and Texas. Iowa State, they laid an egg on Monday in a huge game against Kansas, and that was the biggest game on their schedule. You know, I stayed out of the game ultimately because I just couldn't figure out the status or how effective Kane was going to be. He had just a nasty, nasty ankle sprain last week, and he was listed as doubtful. And I didn't think there was any way he'd play in the game, to be honest with you, after seeing the injury over the weekend in the game they lost. And then here comes the information on Monday. Well, he did the shoot-around, feels pretty good. Game time decision. As soon as I saw game time decisions, like, this guy's going to play. And sure enough, the line took off on the game. Iowa State ends up being about a 2.5-point favorite. I didn't play the game, so it didn't matter to me. But then Iowa State went out and they just laid a stinky, rotten egg. They played a bad basketball game. I think Kansas is in their heads, to tell you the truth. This was not the Iowa State team we're used to seeing. The problem is, Iowa State's better than Texas, okay? The problem is, I don't know how they react to that. Now they get 2 straight losses, and I know how much they wanted that game, and I know how much the crowd was really revved up at Hilton for that game. I mean, every time the Cyclones made a little bit of a run, the crowd went nuts. But, they just couldn't get over the hump, and Kansas ended up winning the game. I think there could be a bit of a hangover, and I also wonder about Kane's ankle here. That's still a sprained ankle, and I think he probably had some 800 milligram Motrin or whatever in his system and managed to get through the game. But I'm not so sure he's going to be effective or even playing in this game. We'll have to wait and see on that. Texas is coming on. It's funny. Rick Barnes, when he's had teams that were expected to do a lot, they haven't. But when he's had teams that were a little bit, under the radar, so to speak, if you can be under the radar in Austin, Texas, but just weren't expected to be that good, these are the teams that he's gotten the most out of. I look back through Barnes' career, and I think I'm fairly well convinced that he's a guy who's a very good coach with okay players and is not a great coach with blue chip, super blue chip players. It takes a special breed to coach the future NBA studs, okay? You do have to approach things differently. It's very difficult, actually, because it's just a different mindset and a different approach that has to be taken. I like the job Barnes is doing with this team. I was very impressed with them going to West Virginia and winning against a team that shoots the three well, which Texas can have some trouble defending, and that could be a problem here. But I think the situation favors the Longhorns. I'm not locking this in as a play because it's early and a lot can change between now and the day of the game. But, John, I'm going to side for now with the Texas side.
This Iowa State team it's so fun to watch them on offense. Top 10 team in scoring. Really not a deep team. They use 6 to 7 guys and run all night long and run teams into the ground in the second half. And the two additions to the team, Hogue and the one you mentioned, Kane, they were kind of supposed to be role players this year. They turned out really to be stars. So they're turning what was a very good Iowa State team last year into a real good team. But a couple of weaknesses. They've lost 2 games, and they can be soft on defense. They gave up 87 points to Oklahoma, and then the game Monday, 77 points to Kansas. They allowed 49% shooting, but what really stands out, though, they're not a big team up front. Kansas killed them 53 to 36 on the glass. You really have to keep that in mind because this Texas team, yeah, they are the youngest team in the Big 12, but like many young teams, they're great at home, 10-2, and they're very big in that front court with Ridley and Holmes. Ridley in particular is 6'9", 285 pounds. We saw them against West Virginia on Monday. On the road, they won the rebounding battle 49-30 against the Mountaineers, and that's a weakness that Iowa State has that can be exploited. So this is a game where I would look at the home team and the rebounding edge that certainly favors Texas. And when you look at last year's games, that's just what happened. Home teams won both. Iowa State won by 20 at home, but then Texas came home, shot 51% for the field, won in double overtime, but they had a significant edge. So I would lead to a home court and rebounding. But do keep this in mind. Iowa State has been undervalued for a while, 41-20 against the spread when they face a team with a winning record, and a very good bounce-back team, although it didn't happen this week, Jim. They're still 12-5 against the spread after a loss, but I would lead toward home court and rebounding.
Well, you both analyzed the game perfectly. There's not really much to add. The Cyclones are not defending. They're not rebounding very well, and they're getting killed on the board. Texas is a team that's bigger, more physical. They can rebound and probably will out-rebound them. You look at the stats after this game, I think you're going to see Texas had more rebounds, probably even on the offensive board as well. And then the Cyclones don't seem to be defending the three very well as well. So those things, and coming off double losses, you would expect Iowa State to bounce back with a big effort, and I think you'll get a big effort from them. The problem is Texas is coming on, and that win, the way they won last night at West Virginia was very impressive. And they bring that home. You know, these young teams, after they play preseason games and scrimmages and everything, and then they play almost 20 games so far, they're not that young anymore. You know, they're experienced, they're coached, they're not making the same mistakes they did back in the beginning. You know, yeah, they go from young to, middle age real quick. And so Texas is playing very well. And if you have these flaws now, I think Kane will be fine because Kane came back and played very well last night. He has 4 days off. They can get therapy and so on and so forth. But whether Kane or not goes and plays well, Texas has got, I think, the ingredient with Barnes leading them, head coach. I think Texas is the right side here.
All right, let's do a little best bet stuff and recap what we've got for special offers. And I hope you'll take advantage of these either with Mr. Vegas or Jim or myself or all of the offers if you want to get random, just a little more varied opinion. Let me start with you, John, and update everybody on what Mr. Vegas has got this weekend and a best bet as well.
Sure, I'll go for a best bet. We're looking at the total in that Iowa State-Texas game. I think it's going to be up-tempo because that's the way Iowa State plays. We saw how good Kane was off the injury. And Texas last year shot 51% at home, and they certainly could get some high percentage shot in the front court. I say also Iowa State is on a 35-17-1 run over the total. They're also 19-8 over the total in Big 12 play. Mr. Vegas for the weekend, 3 big games going this week. You can get all 3 for $10. It's going to be 2 college games of the year as well as the NFL playoff total of the year. 1-866-896-1627.
Well, I think the spot favors Texas. I don't know if this will make my card on Saturday. Obviously, we don't know what the number is for the game yet. And I do want to get updated injury info. But I think Texas is in a better spot than Iowa State here. So I like the Longhorns, certainly right now. This is one of my more simple offers, or simpler, I should say. More simple is incorrect grammar. The bottom line is it's a cinch offer. Take advantage of it. $15 is going to get you the rest of January. It works out to $1 a day, and you'll get all my action plays in all the sports that I handicap. Now I don't do soccer. I know that's actually a burgeoning marketplace. There's more and more people getting involved in the English Premier League. I don't know anything about it, and I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to pretend I know something that I know nothing about. The games I do know about are the NHL, the NBA, college basketball, and what we've got left in football. You're going to get all my action plays in those sports, and you will also get a big window play that I've got tonight. Everything for $15, $1 a day. Good chance to pick up some serious profits over these last couple weeks of January and have some fun in the process. Make sure and call for the offer at 1-866-896-1629. That's 1-866-896-1629. Jim, if this were 20 years or 10 years earlier, I would be saying to myself, I got to figure out this EPL because it's a booming marketplace. But I missed the boat on that one. Fortunately, there's enough good stuff to keep us both going. And you have just cleaned up in the mainstream sports that we have here in this country this year, the NFL in particular.
Well, yeah, it's been a good year. And as far as the EPL, if we need some EPL handicapper, we'll find somebody out there in Europe that probably knows what the hell they're doing and we'll hire them. Because I don't think any of us know anything about it. As far as I got 2 offers. First of all, in the NFL, I'll give you 2 sides and 2 totals in the games. That's $20. Now, I also have a monster basketball offer. Saturday game of the year, it's $100 online. The January game of the month, that's $100 online. And a high roller platinum release, $500 online. That adds up to $700 for 3 big plays. You can get all 3 plays, the $700 value, right now by calling 1-866-841-1655. And it's not $700 if you make that call. It's $29. So you got $20 for the NFL sides and totals, and you got $29 for the 3 huge plays in basketball. 1-866-841-1655. Make the call. You're going to win.
Make the calls and take advantage of the offers, and it's a lot of fun, too. Because the guys in the office they're terrific guys. They bet the games themselves, so they're going to be sweating right there with you. I can guarantee you that. And we think you'll end up in the profit column in a very nice way. So we hope you'll do that. We hope you'll also watch all the editions of Proline that are available online. Get some good information out there that we want to impart, and we think you'll profit by it. So for John Critton and Jim Feist, I'm Dave Cokin. Thanks for watching this edition of Proline, and have a great weekend.